Hi, this is Melissa Bill, and welcome to the Business Roundup, where we catch up with the movers and shakers in the business world. Today, joining me is Ben Jacobs and Jessica Chestler, co-founders of the Chestler Jacobs team. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for
Thank you for
having
having
us.
us.
So right now you're in New York, correct?
Yes.
Yes, we're both in New York. Ben is in Brooklyn. I'm in Manhattan, but we are back in the city right now.
Okay. And you specialize in both Florida real estate and New York markets.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah, we sell both. We sell in New York City and Brooklyn, and we sell in South Florida, primarily Miami and Miami Beach.
Okay, awesome. Now, can you give me a little bit about your background and what your company specializes in?
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, do you want me to start or you want to start?
No, you can go.
So Ben and I have been longtime friends. We met at a company we were both at previously, more of a boutique firm. We chose to independently go to Douglas Elliman. We both came into to Douglas Elliman in 2019, and we came as really good friends, and we were helping each other out here and there. And we decided we'd be stronger together. We thought that forming a partnership would be beneficial to our clients as we could service them equally, but having two felt better than one. So we decided this for a number of reasons, but one of the main reasons is because of exactly what you just mentioned. We service both the New York and Florida markets, and we felt having two strong brokers working together was going to give our clients the best opportunity. And since we've partnered in 2020, we've done around $1 billion of sales between the two markets. We've hired more people to be on the team, more support staff, and we feel really fortunate to both have each other in the support of Douglas Elliman.
No, that's awesome. Now, I know you navigate like the luxury market in particular.
Yes.
Okay. And that's in Florida. Now, how are they like different? Because it's probably very unique, both of them.
Ben, you want to take it?
Yeah, they're totally different. The buyer sentiment and the buyer need is different. I mean, at one point we were seeing a lot of people, looking in the Miami market for a pied-à-terre, place to escape the winter in New York, but that has definitely shifted post-pandemic. We're definitely seeing significantly more people, that are leaving the city and moving down there for full-time residency. That's tapered down a little bit. We have seen, some people come back to the city or choose to decide to stay in the city. Some of those people who, aren't looking to move out to the suburbs of the city, like Long Island and Westchester and Connecticut. A lot of those folks are opting to go out to Brooklyn. So in the last few years, our Brooklyn business has expanded significantly, moving a bunch of people from Manhattan over there. Um, but since the shift of the migration of wealth down to South Florida, the luxury market and the sentiments that make it shift and change are not so different anymore compared to the two markets. They used to be drastically different because the price points were just so significantly higher in New York City. But that shift has really made pricing down in Miami very similar, and in some areas even more expensive than in New York City. So we kind of see some of the same slowdowns in both markets, whether they're political, economical, rate driven. Now we're kind of dealing with potential stock market driven shifting as we see the market go down. So um, it's changed a lot, but they're more similar than they ever were.
In the past. And what about investment opportunities? Are both of them still, are you seeing like those opportunities in both places?
I think I think investments, it's a really interesting kind of conversation because I think it really depends on how you're looking at it and what your goal is as an investor. I think New York, in theory, people are seeing as more discounted. And I think the reason for that is Miami had such a boom, as Ben had mentioned, and the pricing there has changed so drastically in the past few years that nothing is a deal in theory, even if there's areas that are, you know, doing better or continuing to rise. It's the prices are so much higher than they were. In New York, there's opportunities because things that were selling in 2020 for a certain price point are lower now in some areas. So it really depends. It goes neighborhood by neighborhood. But that all being said, there's a new development in New York that's in the West Village that's selling at a record pace with record prices, and it's not even on the market yet. So I think there are people that are investing in quote unquote deals, and there are people that are investing in high quality real estate in both markets. So, it really depends on what you're looking for. But I think that we have investors in both markets looking for all different sorts of things.
And now for like, what are some of the reasons that like high net worth buyers are moving between New York City and Florida?
Still the same shift of
Okay.
what we've seen, over decades, which is no income tax. And I think we're seeing that people are still moving down there for that reason, because there's a significant savings. Since the pricing has gotten drastically higher in Florida, we have seen a little bit of pushback on the carrying costs of homes, condominiums, single family, because the way the real estate taxes are recorded and assessed there is very different than New York. They're significantly higher down there. The insurance, of course, is significantly higher down there than in New York as well. But we're still seeing a big draw of politics and no state income tax that's pushing people down there from the city.
And just to add on to that, I think the taxes are what the original leader was. I think that there's a lot of businesses that have gone there as well. So it's become a little bit more of a business centric city, which I think was people's qualm before. Like New York will always be New York, but I think Miami has
Yeah, good
changed
point.
with all these offices opening up down there. And I think in terms of quality of life and pace, you know, there's not seasons, but the season that they do have tends to be really good weather. So I think that there's been a massive draw, but I think we could all agree that the initial draw was definitely the taxes for our clientele at least.
And do you service international like clients that are looking to buy in these areas?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, we've definitely sold to some international clients in both markets, but in the last few years, we've mostly, I mean, us personally, I can't, speak for other agents, have been busy in the domestic market. People from California moving over, leaving. A lot of people are leaving Los Angeles. That was happening before the devastation of the fires that recently happened to those communities. A lot of Texans are heading East Coast as well, both New York and Florida. So we're mostly been busy in the domestic market, but occasionally we do get an international client.
And now what are some of the hot areas? Because like I said, I lived in Miami and back then I know the places that were coming up were still like, I think like Midtown and then a little further over like towards like it was like Little Haiti. All those areas were starting to change a lot. I don't know what are the spots now that you're seeing growth?
I think that, it's funny. We're involved with developments in a few areas, and we can speak to how all of them are growing. I think that one area we specifically feel is on a massive trajectory and growing really quickly is Bay Harbor. We The developments there are selling really fast. I think that it's offering a lot for clients that are coming from both domestic buyers, international buyers, Miamians, New Yorkers that are moving down there because it offers kind of that community feel. It's you're on the beach, but you're kind of at a really nice location to get across to Miami proper. We're also seeing North Bay Village have a massive shift. There's a lot of developments that are happening there. We've seen tremendous change already. And I think with what they're doing with adding a boardwalk and adding a lot of community areas has made that area a significant opportunity for people as the things they're building there, if they were being built in areas that have already sort of taken off, we think the pricing would be really different. So those are still opportunity areas and where we're seeing a lot of our clients go, both as investment and for primary.
And to live. And that would be kind of like the high-end condos, not so much townhouses, but you're gonna see that type of investment more so in that area.
I think so. I think that, it's interesting because there's still like, since you've lived down there and you understand it, like all areas are changing. Like Brickell has had a massive amount of new development and there's so much more coming, which I think is indicative that developers feel that neighborhood is going to continue to rise. But where we're looking is how these boutique developments are gaining so much attention from domestic buyers, Miami buyers, New Yorkers, international buyers because they offer kind of that more neighborhood type feel. So we've seen North Bay Village and Bay Harbor kind of taking off, and we've seen some really significant trades. There's a development called Lamare, which we're involved with, that just had, a penthouse sold on in Bay Harbor Island that went for over 17 million. So, the numbers there are becoming significantly more substantial than they ever have been. And I think it's a big indicator that buyers of a certain level of wealth want to be in those neighborhoods, even if those aren't like the typical, uh, like the neighborhoods that have the cachet, like North Bay Road and Collins, because I think the pricing there has gotten so astronomical that people are looking into neighborhoods that they feel that there's a future of, wealth and wealth preservation.
And now with New York, I know Brooklyn, I was told, is that still kind of a spot that's kind of growing?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's unbelievable what's happening out there, and it's been happening. It was definitely fueled more by the pandemic, but we saw a big shift migration happening over there, and in a lot of ways, it's one of the strong. I mean, it's a huge market, so there's several neighborhoods that we sell in. Most of the neighborhoods we sell in are the waterfront community neighborhoods going as far back as Carroll Gordon's. There's significantly more neighborhoods, further from there, but I mean, it's just off the charts. I mean, the demand is overwhelming. The inventory is low. It's becoming and is still becoming its own mecca. And I mean, when you look at the data of 2 decades in a lot of these neighborhoods that we sell in, despite what's going economically, globally or domestically, it's the pricing has only gone up. So it's we're having a hard time with buyer clients of ours because there's bidding wars happening, or they need to or things are selling with it 3 to 5% from the asking price. I mean, it's certainly not a deal market out there.
I also think, just to add on to that, I think Brooklyn, Ben and I both live and own in Brooklyn. We also invest in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is such a big area, and I think people don't realize that. And I think the opportunities are vast in Brooklyn because you can go to a neighborhood that's already taken off. You could go to one that's still on the cusp. And like, we have a lot of information about all of those. But Brooklyn has been, we wish we had more inventory in Brooklyn because, like Ben said, all of our clients have been looking for things, and there's very, very little to buy, which is another reason we feel it's doing so well, is there's a mass demand and very little inventory. Other than that, in Manhattan, the West Village, as we mentioned, like, there's a development that's selling, that's kind of having an experience that we've never really seen in a downtown development, or at least since 150 Charles. So we're still seeing the West Village, and we're seeing a lot of interest and inventory slash, you know, buyers interested in that inventory on the Upper East Side, which took a little bit of a snag. So we're excited to see that. But I would say it's really about pricing and quality product. That's what's selling the best in Manhattan. But in terms of neighborhood, I would say West Village and the Upper East Side are having the biggest moments right now.
And what about buyer preferences? Has that evolved as far as what they're looking for, like with the remote work and just different types of things? Has that changed?
We're still, for the most part, we're still seeing that turnkey move-in ready property that that doesn't need work is still the favorite. So, one of these developments, Chestler speaking, will be the West Village, where there's already not a lot of inventory. Something premier like that that's going to be completely done with super high end finishes is definitely where we're seeing the majority of high net worth individuals prefer. Um, that said, we are starting to see a little bit of a shift in that because the inventory is so low and it's so tight that some, beggars can't be choosers. And some people have been, locked in apartments, whether it's a rental or they purchase a smaller apartment at a really low interest rate, and they have families and they need to move into bigger space. So we are starting to see a small percentage, but some looking for places that need to be renovated, but still turnkey is the demand. And open spaces open kitchens, big living rooms, areas where people can set up. You mentioned remote work, areas where people can set up workspaces or alcoves where workspaces can be created. Those are still really, really important.
In those areas. Now, I know real estate overall has changed too. What about with like the marketing and the selling? Like how has that like evolved? I mean, right now I think a lot of stuff is done on through social media and more like online and where it used to be like in person. Have you seen changes there?
We haven't really. I think that Ben and I are relatively young in the grand scheme of things. For both of us, it's our first career. Neither of us had any other career prior to real estate. So we've both been in it since we graduated college. So even though we're relatively young, we've been in it, for significantly more than a decade each. And I think that there's definitely been changes where social media, podcasts, TikTok, everything has impact. But I think that at the end of the day, the way that real estate assets get sold is a very emotional process. And in COVID, even we had a few people get deals done without seeing things. Right now, there are people that are willing to make offers if the exact product they have they can't get here to see. But I think it's a very tangible thing, and whether it's an investment or a primary residence, we rarely see clients wanting to pull the trigger without seeing it live. So we certainly use media and we certainly use all the tools that are at hand that we need to and want to. But the most efficient way to get a deal done, in our opinion, still is face to face. And we feel that as much marketing, as much media, as much everything as we do, it's having knowledge of the markets we're in, being experts across the board, knowing the inventory is still the most important way to get deals done.
And you probably have, I mean, also what I've heard now, do you feel like buyers and sellers are a little bit more educated too now than maybe in the past, like about real estate and when they're, or do you feel that you still, or it just kind of depends?
I mean, now with Zillow and some of these, these other sources that the consumer can go on and look at real estate. In some ways, it has educated them in terms of neighborhoods and pricing because they can see it without us having to set it. I mean, 90% of the inventory on the market in New York City is still on the market. There is a small percentage that's not. But at least, especially in a place like New York, where the purchasing process is so different and nuanced than really anywhere else in the US, it's still we're still finding that we're getting a tremendous amount of buyer leads to help navigate that. Not necessarily finding a property because they can locate it. We can be there as advisors to tell them, hey, we think that's a good property for X, Y, and Z. We think it's a bad property for this reason. But really the process is so difficult and challenging, and there hasn't been a resource that's come out yet to really educate buyers on that.
And now what would be for people who are looking, now do you primarily handle luxury real
We
estate?
we do and we don't. I think that what Ben and I have done really well, at least in our opinion, is we no client should feel different. So if you're selling a home for 500,000 or 50 million, everyone should be treated the same. It was really important to us because our entire business basically is based on personal and professional relationships and referrals. And it was important to us to be able to service every client the same. So no one would be looked at differently. In the grand scheme of things, luxury in New York, just going based on the Olshan report, for example, which is the report that has everything weekly, is really quantified as like 4 million and above. So we certainly don't only service that market. We have listings as low as 300,000 right now. What we've done is we've hired great agents that handle certain areas of our business that are experts in that side of the business. So we have a great rental agent. We have a great broker that handles things under 1 million, a broker that handles things from 1 to 2 million. Ben and I are involved throughout every transaction, no matter what, but we wanted to make sure that there was not one listing or one type of client getting better service than the other. So we worked really hard to make sure we had the right people around us. There's been a lot of trial and error, hiring the wrong people, being leaders of a team. It's challenging because you have to make sure you have similar representation to yourself. But at this point, we have great agents on the team. We have an excellent COO which is really important because that helps all those agents feel the support they need. We have an additional team member that helps kind of as support staff, and we hired a PR team as well. So we can get the exposure to make sure we continue getting kind of every sort of client, but we don't like quantifying ourselves just as luxury. But we feel fortunate that we get to work with that side of the business quite often.
Okay. So customers are all aspects in the industry. And now, if the people want to find you and or about your company, what would be the best place to go?
I think, if it's wanting to learn more, I think our website, just being on the Douglas Elliman website, we don't have anything separate. We feel that that's a sufficient place. It kind of offers all of our listings. It says what we've done. Uh, we feel lucky that we've been in a fair amount of publications that we've given our opinions on to places like that. But I think that where we are the most ourselves and we are very active is honestly our social media. Both Ben and I use our social media pages, not just our team page, and it's ran by ourselves, where we give a lot of insight to what we're looking at, what deals we have happening, what we know that's off market. So it's really easy to get in touch with us via email. It's very easy to get us via phone. But I would say either our website or our social media pages are where we most frequently are updating what we have available and what we know of that might not be publicly available for others as well.
Okay, and that would just be under your names if people are trying to search it.
Yes, it would be the Chestler Jacobs team. If you Google it, there's a link to our website. It's the first thing that comes up. Or if you look up either of our names, and then our social media handles, I'm Jess Chestler on Instagram, and Ben is It's Ben Jacobs, just because he has a more common name. But those are the handles that we use most frequently. And for our website, just it's the ChestlerJacobsTeam.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, I thank you for joining us today. I really
A
appreciate it.
pleasure.
Of course, it was a pleasure meeting you. And if you have any other questions,
We really appreciate it.
go ahead, Ben.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Business Roundup. If you haven't already, please feel free to follow us on Instagram or YouTube. And leave comments below if there's topics you want us to cover. Until next time, I'm Melissa Bill.